In this video, I'll be showing you how to make the Wide Snake Bracelet using the Rainbow Loom. So it is the same concept as the Skinny Snake Bracelet, only this time we're going to be using all 3 rows of pins instead of just 2. So you want to have your loom set up in a staggered position so the pins are not in line with one another. And we're going to start with the arrow facing towards you, so that all of these opened ends are facing you. And for your rubber bands, you will need to choose what colors you would like. So you will need 41 bands for the snake, and I have the Rainbow Loom lime green jelly bands. And then for your background, you will need 90 bands, and I have the black Rainbow Loom bands. And then I have 2 additional black bands for the eyes. And you will also need some additional bands for the extension because it's not going to be long enough to go around your wrist. So we're going to begin by placing the snake on the loom, and we'll start with the head. So for these first 3 bands that I'm going to place on, it's going to be doubled. So you're going to take 1 single band, put it on your hook, twist, and put it back on. So you'll see 2 bands on your hook. And I'm going to start on the second pin down from the top of the loom in that center row, and it is going to stretch straight down. It's going to skip the next pin and go all the way down to that 4th pin down from the top of the loom, and then push that down. And now my next rubber band is going to stretch from the 3rd pin down on the left hand side. It's going to stretch diagonally up and to the right. Again, it's going to be a doubled band, and it is going to be a long stretch all the way over to the right hand row. I'm skipping that middle pin again. And then finally, the last band is going to go on the 2nd pin down in the left hand row, and it's going to stretch all the way across again. It's going to be doubled. It's skipping over the middle and going all the way to the right. And then you want to push all of this down. And now before I add the 2nd layer, I'm going to place the bands on for the eyes of the snake. And I'm going to put them where the bands intersect. So if you see where these 2 bands cross one another, I'm going to put my hook down against this pin and get down in between there and push it out to the front. Now I'm going to take one of the black rubber bands, and I'm going to grab it with my hook, pull it up through, and then put the end that's in my fingers back on the hook. And now I'm pulling the one that's closest to the end of the hook through the other one, and pull that pretty tightly. And I'm going to place it on the pin to the left, just for now, so it's out of the way. And now I want to do the same thing on the right side, so you can see where these 2 bands cross. I'm going to go down through this little triangle space and put my hook right out to the front. And I'm going to, again, get this rubber band on my hook, pull it up through, put the other end back on, so now both ends are on, and I'm pulling the one band that's closer to the bottom of the hook through the other, and pulling that pretty tight to make that slip knot. And so now I'm going to just place these bands in the middle for the moment. Again, they're not going to stay here, but I just want them to be there till I put the other layers of green on. So I'm going to add the 2nd layer of bands, and I'm going to start on the center pin. It's the 4th pin down in the middle row, and I'm just going to take 1 single band. It's not going to be doubled or twist or anything, and I'm just going to work my way around in a clockwise direction, placing one right after the other. And now that I have 2 layers on, I want to remove the bottom layer. So I'm just going to start on the left hand side, and I'm grabbing the bottom two bands. They are going to be tight since this is a doubled band. I'm going to pull it out and over the top and into the middle. Just make sure that these upper bands do not come off when you do that. So I'm just going to work my way around the circle here. On this top pin, you're going to have to grab the bands from the side since you really can't go down in the middle. So I'm grabbing the two bands, pulling them over and into the middle. And now I'll flip to the other side and just keep taking off the bottom two bands. And now I'm just going to push all of these bands into the center so they're nice and tight up against. And now I want to push all of this down, and I'm going to add one more layer. It's going to be the same pattern. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I'll just work my way around in this clockwise direction. And now once again, I want to remove the bottom layer of bands. So it's still going to be two bands at once, but this time they're not going to be as tight since we didn't double these bands. So you're just grabbing the bottom two, pulling them out and over the top. Again, on this top one, you're going to have to grab them from the side. And I'll just do the same thing on the other side here. And now push all of this down once again. And now I'm going to take these black bands off of the center, and I'm just going to put one out to the left, and I'm going to place the other one that was on the right side out to the right, to the pin that's closer to you. And then when we put the background bands on, they're just going to wind up getting looped in with all of the other bands. And so now I need to put the body of the snake on, so I'm going to turn my loom around. So the arrows are now facing away from me. And for this part, I'm going to be placing two bands at once on every time. So I'm just taking two green bands and putting them together as if they were one band and just place them going up the loom. So I'm going to do it in the middle, going straight up. And then I'm just going to wind my way back and forth. So from here I'll go out to the left, always with two bands at once. And now forward. And then I'm going to work my way back over to the right side. And then forward. And now back over to the left. And then straight ahead again. And now back to the right. And then forward. And then finally back to the middle here. And now I want to go back to the start with the arrows still facing away from me, and I'm going to put on the background bands. So for this part, I'm also going to be using two bands at once for every time that I place it on the loom. I'm going to start in the center row, and the first two bands are going to go out to the left. And now the next two bands are going to go out to the right. And the last two bands are going to go straight ahead. And so now I am just going to work my way up all three rows of the loom. I'm always using two bands at once, and you always want to push these down. So I will fast forward here. And now I want to stop one pin short from the end of the loom on the left-hand row, and those two bands are going to go into the center. And then on the right hand row, I want to do the same thing. I'm stopping one pin short from the end, and these two bands will go to the middle row. And then finally in the center row, I have the two bands that are going all the way to the end. And then I want to turn my loom around so the arrows are facing towards me. And now I'm going to put on the last rubber bands, and these are going to be the cap bands. So the first one is going to go in the center row on the end pin. It's going to be a doubled band. I'm just going to place it right on the top. And now for the rest of the loom, I'm going to take a rubber band, start on the left hand side, stretch it all the way across to the right, and then also to the pin above. So it makes a triangle shape. And I'm just going to go to the pin above and just repeat that, making that triangle. So I'm going to work my way up the loom. And then this is the last one I'm going to place on. I'm not doing any on the very end. And so now it's time to start to loop the rubber bands. So we will go back to the start, and we're going to start in the center row. And on this pin, it's very full. The first two bands are the cap band that we just placed on. The next two bands are going forward. The next two bands go out to the left, and then the next two black bands go out to the right. And finally, at the very bottom are the two snake bands. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my hook down through the middle, push back on the top two rubber bands, that's the cap band, and I'm going to push back on the top two bands, get them behind my hook. I'm grabbing the next two rubber bands. I want to hold this cap band in place. I'm pulling them out and moving them forward. Then I'm going to go back down through, again get them behind my hook, grab the next two rubber bands. I'm going to hold this in place again, and these are going to go out and to the left. And now I'm going to go back down through and get the next two black bands, and these are going to go to the right. And then finally I'm going back down through and grabbing the two snake bands, and this pin is getting very full on the left. I'm grabbing those two rubber bands and getting them right on the top. And so now I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom. So I'm going down through and getting the top two green bands and the top four black bands to go behind my hook. I'm going to grab those next two black bands in line. They're going to be my background bands. I'm going to pull them out and move them ahead. And now I'm going to go back down through, and there's going to be four snake bands on the bottom here. We want to push back on the top two, just grab the bottom two and pull them out and move them forward. And so on this next pin, I'm going down through the middle. I always want to make sure that this triangle band is behind my hook. I'm grabbing the two black bands, or whatever color your background is, and then going back down through for the bottom two snake bands to move ahead. And on this next pin, we have just the two background bands, and then the same thing for the next one. Those are easy. Now we're up to another snake band, so you're going to have four bands. It's going to be the top two and then the bottom two. Again, same thing. You're having four bands, so it's the top two going back down for the bottom two. And now these next two pins have just two rubber bands, actually the next three, so this next one is just two bands as well. And now I have the two background bands, And also on this pin is the band for the eyeball. So you're actually getting 3 black bands to move forward. And then I'm going back down through for the 2 snake bands. And on this next one you have just the 2 black and then the 2 green. And finally the last 2 black bands will move out and to the center. And so now I'm going to go back down to the start, and this time I'm going to loop the right side of the loom. So it's basically going to be the same pattern. I'm going down through, I'm pushing back on the top 4 black bands, getting those bottom 2, and then on the next pin the same thing, just the bottom 2. And then when we have these snake bands, you need to get 4 bands to move ahead. So you'll have the top 2, and then you're going to go back down through for the bottom 2. Make sure it's the bottom 2. And now the same thing again. So I have the 2 background, and then I'm going to go back down for just the bottom 2. And now on this next one, I have just the 2 background, and then the same thing again. And now we're up to some more snake bands. So you're getting the top 2, and then going back down for the bottom 2. Make sure those upper snake bands are behind your hook and you're only grabbing the bottom ones. And now the same thing again on this next pin. And now on this next one we have just the 2 black. And now this is part of the head, so you're going to actually have 3 black bands. It's going to be the 2 background bands, and then also the band that was the other eye. So I'm just moving all 3 of them ahead. And now going back down for the green. And on this next one we have all 4 bands to move ahead. And then finally I have the last 2 bands on the right hand side. They're going to come out and move into the middle. I'm going to push these down in the middle because this does get very full. And now I'm going to go back to the start, and it's time to loop the center row. So I'm going down through the pin here, pushing back on the top bands, grabbing the bottom 2, and moving them out and ahead. And so now I am going to grab the next 2 background bands that are on the top here. And then I will go back down through, and for all of the ones that have snake pieces on, they are going to have 4 rubber bands, 4 green or whatever color your snake is, and you always want to make sure that you're just grabbing the bottom 2. So you're going to be making sure the top 2 get behind your hook, and you're grabbing the bottom 2 rubber bands, pulling them out and moving them ahead. And it's going to be like that for every other one. So on this pin we have just the 2 background, and now here comes the one with the snake on. So you have the 2 background, and then there's the 4 snake bands on here. You're just pushing back on the top 2, grabbing hold of the bottom 2 and moving them ahead. And on this next one we have just the 2. And then on the next one it's going to be 4. It's It's going to be the top two, and again just the bottom two. And now just two on this next one. And now this one has four. So it's the two background and then the two bottom. And on this next one, it's going to be the two background. And this time there are only two snake bands, so you want those to move ahead as well. And now we're at the middle of the head, so you're only going to have the two background bands. Just make sure you're not picking up any of the green bands. And then finally we have the top two bands. And now we need these two snake bands to move ahead, but this is the trickiest part because they are wrapped around the back side of this pin. So you're going to have to put your hook in, push it out to the side, make sure those background bands are above your hook. So you're grabbing these bottom two bands and pulling them out, and now you need to just move them ahead. And it's going to be a little tight, and you can see they went over top of this pin, so I'm just going to put them around to the side. Let's get them out of the way there. And you are done the looping part. So now all we have to do is take it off of the loom. So a lot of times I put a band at the top and then I just pull it off, but for some of the bracelets I like to just take my time and do it more slowly. So I'm going to do it for this one. I'll go down to the end here that's closest to me, and I'm just going to put my hook down inside and release these just so it holds its shape a little bit better. So I will fast forward through this part. And so now before I take these last couple of bands off of my pins, I'm going to take another black rubber band. I'm going to take my hook and put it down through this center pin. Make sure it goes through all of the bands because there are a lot. Push it out to the side. And I want to grab this black rubber band and pull it up through. Put it back on my hook. Now I want to make sure I keep hold of these two black bands on the hook because I don't want that to come apart. I can take the rest of this off. And then here is my bracelet. So what you want to do is just adjust these a little bit. You want to pull on these rubber bands to make them nice and tight. If you have any parts of the snake that you think need to be adjusted, that the bands need to get pulled to the top or to the back more, you can do that. And then for the head, if you need to adjust it to make it more round looking, and then here's the eyes that we put on, and you can adjust those as well. So I am just going to put this aside for now so I can make the extension. So I want to take my loom with the arrows facing away from me, and I'm going to place on 4 black rubber bands. I'm just going to go on this right side of the loom. And now I'm going to take these 2 black bands that are on my hook, and I'm going to put them on as the next rubber band. And I'm just going to go in through the middle and grab this black rubber band and just have it come back towards myself. Just keep going into the next one. Just keep working my way back. And now I'm going to take my hook, put it down through the middle so I can take this off of the loom. And I'm going to take a clip. I have a C-clip here. Just put these 2 rubber bands through the clip. And now I'm going to go to the other side. I should have a circle right in the middle. That was my cap band. I'm going to take another black rubber band and pull it through, put it back on my hook, and again I'm going to set this off to the side. And I'm going to place 4 more black rubber bands on the loom. And you may not need this many, or you may need a few more. Just depends on the size of your wrist. And now again I'm going to place this on as the next band. And now I'm just going to reach down through the middle and get these to come back towards me. And then I can reach in the middle, pull this off. And now I want these 2 bands on my hook to go through the other side of the clip. And then here is my snake bracelet. So there's one more thing that you can add if you want to, which would be a tongue. So you would need to find a rubber band, either red or pink. So I will take a red rubber band and I'm going to find a place in the front, pick up a couple of bands on the front here. I'm going to take my hook and pull this band through, place it back on, and then slip one end through the other to make a slip knot. And I want to pull this sort of tight, but not super tight. And then here is his tongue. And if you want, you can cut this to make it look like a forked tongue look, because they do have forked tongues. So you can play with it until you get it to look how you would like it. And I will show you another one that I made. This one I used a white background and orange rubber bands. And what you can do is you can add stripes to your snake. I'll show you one that I made using the skinny snake, and this is just using 2 rows of the loom, and I did show you how to put stripes on it, so you can watch this video and learn how to do the stripes. It's really just a slip knot. It's the same concept as the way we did the eyes. So this is the Wide Snake Bracelet. I hope that everyone was able to follow along with the tutorial. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!